Let's go. Hey. Wrightsville chillin', we vibe. Sip a cold one on Palm Tree Island. When the tide come in, gotta love it. Putting money in the meter, paddle boarding. Yeah, hands up.
All right, welcome back, everybody, to another edition of the Palm Tree Island podcast. Today, we have a very special guest, Captain Tom Morgan of Towboat US. Tom, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Well, this is exciting for me because I enjoy boating, and we talk about a lot of different things on the show here. But I just want to jump right into boating in the Wrightsville Beach area, the intercoastal, offshore. What is one of the kind of things if a buddy talks to you and he says, hey, man, just give me some common sense advice about boating safely, properly?
I think as far as safety is concerned in the Wrightsville Beach area, there are a few accidents each season. There are primarily associated with alcohol or just a lack of being aware of your surroundings. There are, for the most part, though, most people go out, have a great time. They don't have any problems other than for what we're there for, which is mechanical issues, boats aground. We run offshore up to 75 miles offshore, drag people in. I just a few days ago was over 50, which makes for a long night.
Yeah,
it definitely does. But I think the biggest factor as far as safety goes, just being aware of your surroundings and understanding the navigation aids, understanding the inlets. A lot of accidents happen in the inlets themselves. One of the best inlets on the East Coast is Masonboro Inlet. The other ones in our area, not so good. There can be some problems.
And they're always shifting. That's one thing people don't realize.
Yeah, they shift each year. It changes constantly. Even sometimes throughout the season, it'll change quite a bit. Now, recently, we just had a lot of dredging done. Mm-hmm. So some of the inlets are considerably better off.
Yeah. That's the one, we go out to Mason's Inlet quite a bit, and, that's one that's gotten trickier. And I think they just dredge it?
They did. In fact, it's considerably better.
Okay, good.
Yeah. And I would think that we're probably, at least that's considered a non-navigable inlet, even because it's just not marked. It's really a locals inlet only.
Yeah.
But I've looked at some drone footage. I think it's looking great, especially coming in from the waterway. The inlet itself is deep and looks good. I wouldn't recommend people take it. It's not marked. I think for safety reasons, it's definitely best to run to Masonboro Inlet.
Yeah.
And then Carolina Beach Inlet, always a problem.
A quick story about Mason's Inlet. Just this last summer, my wife and I like to go out kind of later in the afternoon and kind of have the area when people are kind of gone home. Mm-hmm. And so we were the last ones out there at Mason's Inlet, and my wife said, I see something drifting over there. And I was like, well, what is it? She goes, I think it's just a jet ski. And then I looked over, and sure enough, there was a flipped little Boston whaler with a young guy sitting on the hull, castaway style.
Oh, yeah.
Thankfully, drifting back. He was lucky he was incoming. And so I jumped in the boat, and you know how it kind of bangs up against the marsh right there across.
Right.
And, man, he said he was going out. He'd been out that inlet a million times. He got caught sideways on a small wave where it dunked his engine for just a second, and it stalled, and then the next wave flipped him over.
Oh, yeah. I've actually uprighted several over the years. I've been in the area a long time, worked for Towboat US for over 20. And so I have seen countless boats flipped in that inlet.
Yeah.
Actually. Yeah, there's a lot of current. But what a great place to hang out. Because,
I love it.
Well, you get in the middle of summer. I've seen days out there. It looks like the Bahamas.
We it's funny because, for Palm Tree Island, I try to go out every once in a while and just give out some free stuff or stickers and stuff like that. And my wife, every time if we have guests in town especially, she wants to take them to Mason's because she knows it's going to be Caribbean blue, right?
Oh, yeah.
And then on the way, I'll be like, look, I'm just going to stop at Palm Tree. No. We're not stopping. Go straight to Mason's. I want the blue water.
Honestly, the prettiest water is up this way.
Yeah.
It definitely is.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's touch on a couple of the specific things that you were talking about there. One about what are some tips as far as, our marine tech guys here would say, just if you don't know, go slow, right? Until you figure out the depth and the inlet. What's kind of your advice for not running aground?
I think, a great deal of the boats that aground that we recover are tidal related. Some of them they'll go to these islands, go for a walk on the beach, spend some time with a dog, and the tide rolls out, and they didn't realize. But there's areas we have almost a 4-foot tidal change, and that'll make a big difference.
Yeah.
And then I think the biggest thing in the waterways is understanding the navigation aids. What are the reds and greens? The whole red right return coming in from an inlet. Understanding areas in Wrightsville Beach like Mott's Channel. People do get confused in that one running through. And then being aware that if you haven't run it through there for a while and you don't have a fresh line marked on a chart plotter, your GPS, then it could have changed since the last time you ran through there. We'll have areas that occasionally will pop up. They will be middle of the channel and it's shallow, depending on what size vessel you have.
And I'm with you there. I mean, I'm guilty of a couple times of being at Masonboro Island and going across Oceanside to enjoy the waves with the kids and kind of forget the time. And then you come back, you're like, oh, that could have been.
We pull a lot of surfers out.
Yeah, I bet. I bet.
Yeah. In the first and second cove there's a lot of surfers that will pull out of there.
What do you suggest people take like Power Squadron used to offer stuff, like some sort of boating course to learn navigation, or what do you think is the best way to kind of pick those skills up?
You know what? To be honest with you, I think one of the best ways is to hire a captain for the day.
Right. There you go.
I think it's there's several people around that can do that, even on days off. Like we have 5 captains. A lot of times one of our captains might be willing to do it, especially on, those mid-sized boats that is predominantly what we have here. The large vessels, you get up into the sport fishes and things like that.
Right.
Their insurance companies a lot of times will require that whoever's driving that boat has to be licensed.
Yeah,
and
that's
so,
probably a good idea.
Right. But you'll be surprised, though. A private individual can roll in and buy a brand new Sea Ray that's 50, 60 feet long, and they possibly have never driven anything like that.
No, I believe it.
And the systems are complicated. So, a lot of our guys are pretty knowledgeable. We have a lot of experience. And, just docking, being aware of what's going on. So, but there's a lot of people around. If people were interested, we could definitely hand out a list of names. I think that's a great idea. They can spend a few hours with you, run the inlets, check out the area, tell you where to go, where not to go.
And they're doing it in your boat where you're comfortable and where you're going to be operating.
Well, that's exactly right. They can actually teach you, fairly quickly, at least how the system's on your boat. And things are getting pretty complicated now.
Yeah. And that's something that me and my buddy have employed for fishing, right? I mean, we've all fished for years, but at some point we're like, you know what? Let's just see if we can hire a captain to go out with us today and teach us some stuff we don't know properly.
If you want to increase your catch, just grab a local captain.
Yeah.
Right?
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, I know several that can take you out and actually, hey, let me show you some techniques.
Yeah, and that was what we were kind of looking for, because we weren't necessarily looking for like a normal charter trip where you just want to catch whatever's biting, but wanted to learn specifically like skills that we could use, and it was really valuable. And I imagine, having that for just operating your boat would be worth its weight in gold.
Oh yeah, and for not a whole lot of money for the value you're going to get. And that goes back to avoiding accidents, collisions. Those kinds of things. If you run a certain power boats aground, well, you might need to call your insurance company, just from damages and things like that. And then, we have some of the inlets. I've seen a lot of boats have issues, and navigating at night also would be very, very critical.
Yeah.
Understand the nav aids, understanding navigation lights. What are you looking at? Now, the power squadrons do offer courses. You can do that. There are boater safety classes. You can even call and they will do a boater safety inspection on your vessel.
Oh, wow.
Run through things like flares and PFDs and, fire extinguishers. And they'll do it all at no charge. They'll come out, run it through you, and make sure you understand how to operate it all. So, I mean, that's a great service, too.
That's a pretty great resource that anybody's listening, I would imagine, should pick up on, especially for free, that they're out there and able to do that for you.
And I don't think it's a bad idea to have their sticker that they give you at the end. They'll throw that on your boat. And you might avoid a boarding.
Maybe.
Maybe not.
But it can't hurt.
It can't hurt when you have the Coast Guard and Wrightsville Beach Police Department, Wilmington Police Department, Wildlife, Marine Patrol.
Look, and people out there, don't be offended, and I'm sure Tom would agree. Just about at the beginning of every season, I'm gonna get pulled. Just because they're trying to check people for safety. I don't take it personally. Usually by then I built my own boat, so it looks a little different than other boats. So usually once they've pulled me over at the beginning of the season, that organization doesn't check me again for the rest of the summer because my boat's a little bit more
recognizable. If it's unique looking, sure.
Yeah, so it's like I usually got my one pass and then they leave me alone.
Just roll with it. I mean, that first few trips, you might even get pulled over twice in the same day.
Yeah.
For either, sometimes even the same organization. But maybe, if there's multiple people. The big thing is they're checking, one of the biggest things is do you have the safety equipment? Do you have children on board? Are they wearing their life jackets?
Sure.
And
you'd be amazed how many videos you see.
It happens a lot. And I'll see people, especially if they're out of town, maybe they're on inland lakes, that kinds of thing. And if I'll see them, I'll roll up on them and say, hey, just to let you know.
Yeah.
Good way to avoid a ticket is put that 10-year-old in a life jacket.
Yes.
Yeah.
Another method that I'm sure Tom will not endorse, or any of us will officially endorse, is if I'm out at Masonboro or Masons and I'm worried about getting pulled or think I just don't want to be hassled, I generally wait for the 14-foot skiff with the 25-plus drunk college kids to pull out in front of me.
A guarantee to get pulled over.
They're guaranteed to
to put a bunch of girls on your boat in bikinis.
Yes. Just it never fails. And look, man, I have been young and dumb, as we all have, but it never fails to amaze me how many people they try to pack on. Because what happens, I'm sure you see it all the time, is a lot of people want to go out to the island and they don't think about how they're going to get back.
Oh, man.
And then you got like 20 people on this tiny little boat, half drunk,
I've seen years that say the 4th of July, Memorial Day weekend, that we have to be really careful to go pick up a boat at Masonboro Island. I've had years that I just can't get too close to the shoreline.
Yeah.
That come around, 7, 8 o'clock. Drunk kids are trying to get on your boat.
Right.
Yeah. You can't. I've had it where you can't get too close.
Or they try to get on your actual towboat?
Yes, absolutely. I've had them, they're bum rushing you and you're like, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
We're not a passenger vessel. Yeah. But they will. They
get desperate.
They get desperate. Yeah. They get real desperate. Now, what they have done, the Coast Guard has actually, there used to be a lot of kind of under the radar taxi services that weren't really licensed to run people over. They've cracked down over the last several years.
Yeah.
And so now they're making...
you have to have your captain's license, your basics.
Well, not just a captain's license, but you can't just take them over there.
Okay.
The agreement is you need to also make arrangements to bring them back.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's because, think about it. If you
Yeah.
spend all day long running them over there, why not? With the temptation not to be just to go home
Look.
and let them be on their own. Sure it is.
Yeah.
And then, of course it is. But no, now it's much more controlled. It's a lot safer. It's not near as bad as it used to be.
One of the other kind of just fun things I wanted to ask you were, what are some of your favorite tow stories that you can share?
There's a lot I cannot.
I believe.
Yeah, there's a lot I cannot. Well, I've done this a long time. It's over 20 years. Full-time, over 20 years. And I've seen about every scenario that someone could possibly do. And we have somewhere of 90% of what we do is fairly routine. 8% that is might get fairly interesting.
Okay.
and then 2% might be terrifying. To be quite honest with you.
I bet. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've been in 12-foot seas, and understand we run around in our largest 25, 27-foot boats, and so we are not the Coast Guard, but we do get ourselves in situations. I mean, the weather turns quickly. I've had a number of very bad weather scenarios. I've actually been in 2 hurricanes. I actually got a call a number of years ago, and it was the Coast Guard. And the storm, this was blowing at the time. It was blowing 90. And they asked if we could go out and get a boat. That 2 guys went for a joyride and were washed up on Mason Island in an 18-foot boat.
Oh, man.
And I told them, I was like, well, I'm not so sure that I can even get out of the marina. I mean, it's blowing 90.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, but I said, I'll give it a shot. This is years ago. We used to keep a couple of boats over at Dockside Marina. And so I left. It was dark. It was early in the morning.
Wow.
Yeah.
With 90-mile-per-hour winds
and
dark?
Yeah, and dark.
Right.
Raining, blowing 90. I get down there, was able to get out of the slip. And when I hit the waterway, and it was doable, ran through Shins Creek towards Masonboro Inlet, and when I got into Banks Channel, it was just daybreak, and it was rolling through there about 8 foot.
Oh, wow.
And I was about to take one broadside, actually turned the boat, surfed the boat back behind Masonboro Island, and was able to find them and brought them in.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, yeah. And then I've seen a lot of humorous things.
Right.
You
Give
know.
us some of those. There, we'll perk this back up with something funny.
I pulled up at Mason's that we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
And I had a boat. This is about 6-7 years ago. I pulled up, and a 27-foot cabin boat. I pulled up, and there was a jet ski on the very top of the boat.
Okay.
And I pulled up, and I was like, how exactly did you manage this? And because it looked perfect, like you had picked it up, put it up there with a crane. And I was like, wow. And the guy ended up owning both vessels. His son was on the jet ski. He ended up stopped for dolphins. Was afraid he was going to hit the dolphins, which is impossible, by the way. And
good little nugget for you all
yeah,
out there. Don't worry. They'll
they're,
move.
They're not manatees.
Right.
You'll be good. Anyway, son couldn't stop and jumped it over the outboards, did 20 outboards on it, and landed perfectly on top of the boat and just stepped off. I was amazed no one was killed.
So instead of just impact, it somehow hopped
ramped
up.
it, hopped it, and jumped on top of the boat.
Wow.
And while towing it, because they're like, what do we do? I was like, well, let's get it to a marina. Let's pick it up with a forklift. That's going to be the easiest thing to do. And I had people sending me texts. They're like, how did they do that? And they were like, because what it wasn't so much, you didn't look like, it looked deliberate. And so you're like, what new
Right,
technique
like it was
is
placed
this?
there.
What is this new technique? How do they get it off of there? And I'm like, it wasn't deliberate. It wasn't deliberate.
You know, I don't think you can put a fine enough point on it. We've touched on it a little bit, but and it was something I had to learn early on. Is I just had no idea that sometimes the inlets are the choppiest, most rough part of it. And like a lot of times if I'd go out offshore fishing, you get through the inlet and be like, I don't know if we should go out. And then you get past the inlet, realize it's actually calmer in the ocean.
Well, it can be, and there is a time not to turn around. Now, this comes from experience, and I'm not handing out any advice.
We'll take it.
But there is a time not to turn around.
Commit.
Yeah, there is a time to commit. And I saw this happen in Carolina Beach Inlet years ago. A boat, they did not commit. And in the process of trying to turn and come back in, took one broadside.
Yeah, and just flipped over.
And that happens. That definitely happens.
I think I just saw something similar to that on Qualified Captain today.
Actually, Qualified Captain's a great site. There's a lot of that.
Yeah, there's a lot. And he's a local guy, Aaron.
He is, yeah.
Used to be in the towboat game himself.
Yeah.
Very cool dude and a great site there for sure.
Again, though, we're talking about isolated events.
Sure.
Most people, they have a great time.
Yes.
And
these are just the more interesting stories.
Yeah, they're just
to hear
more
about.
interesting stories.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I said earlier, there's a lot of funny stories that inappropriate. that you just don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
You know, when you get there.
What's the situation?
What
You
is the
just pull it up
situation
on.
here? You
Right.
know, and it's and
Yeah.
you know, but you know, I'm also a believer of go with what you got. Go have fun. The weather's nice. If you have a working radio,
That's right.
if you have a membership with Towboat US,
There you go.
if something happens, you don't have to. There's not an out-of-pocket fee, which is terrible. You know, I mean, nobody wants to have a broken boat. And now we owe money to the towing company.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
That'll ruin your day.
And it is so cheap, too. That's the thing. It is so cheap for what you get. I mean, from jump starts to we'll bring you fuel.
Yep.
You know, we're going to tow you in. We're going to unground you. The only thing it really doesn't cover is that salvage situation.
Right.
And then have insurance on the boat.
Yeah.
Have insurance. It is not necessarily that expensive.
No.
And even if you had a 20-foot boat, insure it.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't realize that if you want to keep it at like Inlet Watch or one of these things,
Well,
you
they're going
have
to need
have-
insurance.
You have to have
Yeah, but you'd be
insurance.
surprised.
A lot of people out there just cruising around with
no
coverage.
insurance, I'd be terrified of just the liability involved in it.
Right. Yeah, and don't forget your boat.
It's
you know.
That's right. What if you accidentally had someone just hurt themselves, or you know, God forbid, you had some kind of collision, and it was your fault? Let's say you had an environmental impact.
Yeah.
Your insurance will cover that if it's a good company.
So
Yeah.
I think I'd sum most of this up with, look, the important part, you know, go out there, have fun. Don't necessarily be inhibited or scared of
Not at
going out there for sure. But, you know, take a second, think about the few things we've talked about, whether it's insurance, whether it's about having a towing subscription and learning navigation, and just, you know, you'd be surprised. I mean, I was the same way when I first started boating. You just get so excited that you got a boat. You just want to get out there. And sometimes you don't realize some of those steps that would probably be good for you to take. So I think all those things are good little things to check off the list.
Sure, and I tell you, one more thing that we could definitely add to that
Sure.
is, you know, with what we do for a living, we see the mistakes made. We know the areas of our area that there are problems, whether it be shoaling, you know, something so simple as, you know, with all the dredging, you know, there's dredge pipes run across certain areas. Most people don't understand what those day shapes mean as to which side to pass,
Right.
that you can even call the dredge on the radio and find out, hey, what is the route around here? But you can always call us 24/7. And we're not going to tell you exactly what to do, but we can give you an idea of where there's problems.
Right. And
Yeah.
give you some sense of relief. Well, I tell you what, this has been a blast. I've really enjoyed our conversation. And listen, you've shared some, I will say, pearls of wisdom, folks. I will say those were pearls.
Pearls.
Pearls. Shiny pearls.
Well, hopefully it's somewhat informative.
Yeah,
But don't think, hey, if anybody has any questions, you know, they can always call us. Just call us direct. And we're more than happy to. I mean, we have people call, hey, what's the greatest restaurant in walking distance of Wrightsville Beach Marina? You know, we've had that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it just goes along with one of the neat things about this area with Wilmington and Wrightsville Beach in general is just people are friendly.
Sure.
You know, you can call these guys up at Towboat US, whether you're looking for a membership or, like you just said, if you're looking for a close restaurant, like everybody's pretty laid back and is willing to be helpful. So that's kind of one of the neat things about our area that I like to celebrate for sure.
Yeah, I've been here now over 30 years. I grew up in South Louisiana, and so I mean, I actually grew up on boats my whole life, and but I've finished school here after going back after being out for a while, graduated from UNCW, and honestly, I just never left.
Yeah.
Because I've seen almost the entire East Coast, all the way down through Florida, down into the Bahamas, even took a boat one time to Grand Turk. And to be honest with you, we have one of the greatest inlets on the East Coast right here. We have great fishing, and this is world-class scuba diving.
Yeah.
Is right here. Yeah.
Well, listen, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you, sir.
I want to hear more boat stories and tow stories at some point. So
As soon as we sign off, I'll tell you a couple of them that aren't
that are not suitable.
They're not so suitable for general
air.
audiences.
Well, all right, folks, that is another session there of Palm Tree Island Podcast. I hope you guys enjoy it. Check it out, share with your friends, and we will see you next time.
Good times when you in Wrightsville. It don't matter if you're old or you're young, laying out on the beach and steady soaking up the sun. Hey, real good vibe, everything you need right here. We just wanna Wrightsville chill. I just wanna Wrightsville chill. Hey, pour your wine. I'ma need an ice cold beer. We just wanna Wrightsville chill. I just wanna Wrightsville